Hey, what's going on, guys? It's that cubing guy here, and in this video I'm going to be doing 5 face-turning octahedron or FTO walkthrough solves. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is because quite a few people in the FTO community have expressed interest in me sharing my thought process during my solves, and I also realized that there's not a lot of videos on walkthrough solves of FTO. And for reference, I am currently 3rd in the world in the unofficial rankings for FTO. I have a 27.16 average of 5 and a 22.9 single. So I think I'm pretty qualified to make this video. We're going to be doing 5 solves, and the scramble is going to be at the top of the screen so you can follow along. Now, one thing I do want to note is I am using Ben's color scheme, but if you are using the standard Lan color scheme, I may do some walkthrough solves later on using that scheme. So just for reference, unless you are able to kind of transfer or kind of translate the color scheme in your head, this may be a little difficult for you to follow if you use the Lan color scheme. All right, so let's get into the first solve. All right, and this is what your puzzle should look like. And so the first thing that I see immediately looking at the puzzle is I see this small trap already made, and that's really nice because then it means I don't have to worry about where those pieces are. Now, to make the large trap, I may do something, since I see this edge and this triangle, I may do something like this. I will rotate this pink edge up here, rotate the triangle so I can pair them up in this little half trap thing, and then pair up the large trap like that, and then just do a couple moves to solve the first center. Now, moving into first triple, or first 2 triples, I immediately see this and this. And this is a 3. I can pair up this first triple in 3 moves and then insert it with 1 move. The way I would do that is I see this one and I'd hide this pair, do a U move to bring this piece over here, and then do an R to bring it back up and pair them together, and then I do a U to put it in its spot. Now I'm immediately looking at this corner, and when I rotate to put this triangle or triple in the back, I can see that this color is yellow and this color is yellow. This means I can pair up these 2 pieces in 2 moves. And then I'm also looking at this piece and where these 2 pieces may end up, since they may end up being advantageous after I do these 2 moves. So we have these 2 paired up in the back, and then this here. One of these triangles ended up back here, which is the same situation as before. Pair them up like that and insert them. Now moving right into my first center, I am color neutral for centers, so I kind of look at what's made more, and so I immediately see this little pair here on the green center, this yellow and this gray, and I immediately know that these 2 will be able to pair up in 3 or 4 moves. And the way I would do that is I would do a U move. No, I wouldn't. I would do a wide R, U, wide R prime, U prime, R prime, and that would put those 2 in their correct spots in the correct scheme. and then I just adjust it so that these two are on the right side, so I don't have to worry about them. And then I would rotate again so that they're kind of on the bottom. And then I see this. Now this isn't fantastic, but we can work with it. And this, the way I would recognize this is that this one's opposite and one of these is up here. And the way I would solve this is I would bring one of these triangles directly above the edge and hide this triangle while also attaching this one. That way we can do a U move and then bring this piece back up to attach it. And then it's only one move to put it in its place. And then I would move to orient the center and then move on to our red. And now this is pretty nice. We see this pair on our gray edge. And we know that gray, the color scheme is gray, orange, pink. So we will be able to do this first large trap 2-gen. And we would do that by hiding this pair with an R move, or R prime, move this edge into place, and then bring this pair back up. And that would bring our trap right into place. And then this is a fairly okay case. It's not great, it's not horrible, but it can be solved 2-gen. Well, all of these cases can be solved 2-gen. But the way I would solve this is I would bring this pair on the right side so that we can hide it, and then do a U move to bring this piece. When we undo that move, it'll bring it in here, and then we do a U move, and it's a 3-move insert from here. And immediately I see that this piece, this center needs to be oriented counterclockwise, and then this one also needs to be oriented counterclockwise. Now I won't adjust the D face just yet because it may be better to leave it depending on where our last bottom triple ends up. Now I can immediately see that I'll only have to do 2 flips to make my last bottom triple, and the way I'm going to do that is we see that this color is blue, and we see a blue triangle right here, and we know the next color is going to be yellow, and there's a yellow triangle here. Now you could maybe do something fancy to preserve these 2 triples, but I know that this triple will probably end up being preserved, so it's okay. So we do a U move, or a U prime, to pair up these 2, and rotate, and we're going to flip these 2 so that the yellow ends up on the bottom and this triangle also ends up on the bottom. And so we pair those up, and I would insert them by adjusting the D face and doing a pretty simple insert. And then we do that. And now this is not a great last 3 triples case, but we can work with it. We see that this triple is solved technically, but these 2, the triangles would need to be swapped to have a good case. So the way I would go about doing this is I would first flip this one, and one of these 2 I'll just flip the back one. That way we get this triangle in the top layer so we don't have to worry about it. And then I'd likely rotate and flip this one so that we can pair it up with this triple, or this triangle. So we flip that. And I know if we were to just do this, we would have 1 flip because this triangle ends up on top. So we're not going to do that. The way we avoid 1 flip is, instead of immediately pairing up the triangle, we are going to actually offset it, kind of, where instead of solving this triangle and this triangle, we're going to flip both of these, this triangle and this corner, so that the correct colors are on top. And then we can pair these up and solve these 2 in 1 flip. And so then we see that we have a front sledge to solve the triangles, or the triples, and we will have a CP clockwise. And that's the first solve. All right, now let's take a look at the second solve. The first thing I immediately see is this large trap made in the correct color scheme, which is really, really great. And then I can also see that this is paired up, and this triangle can be brought down in 2 moves, like this. And so now that we have both of our traps, we can pair them up pretty simply, like that. Now the first thing I saw was this triangle, or this corner. I don't see anything better around the puzzle, so we're just going to go with what I saw immediately. I saw this triangle as well, so we know that since this is yellow, we can pair these up in 1 move. And then I see this triangle as well, and I know that, or I know the way to pair this up is by hiding this pair, rotating or doing a U move so that this triangle ends up back here, and then undoing that move so that we can pair up the triple. And then we do a U move to put it in place. And then the next thing I saw was this corner and this triangle, and I just do an R prime to pair them up. And then there's nothing fantastic. I mean, I would probably, if I was doing this as a speed solve, I wouldn't see that this triangle is back here. I would probably do this, which would be less efficient, but since I have the look ahead for it in the slow format, I would see that moving from here to here, we can do 1 move to pair up these 2 pieces, this pair and this triangle, and then insert that triple. And so then I would move on to my first center. Now there's a couple of good options. I think what would stand out to me, okay, so red is actually the better option here. So immediately I saw this bar, which is great. And then I saw this edge, and now what I was looking for is the other pieces that would attach to it. And luckily they are already paired up, and we can create the large trap in 2 moves. And then since we know that this bar ended up back here, we can do 2 more moves to create the center. And then I'd orient it and bring it down. Now the first thing I see is this pair, and I would just kind of set it in the R layer so it can't be disturbed. And then I see this. Now this would be a really good case if it was on this face, but since it's up here, it's not super useful to us. But what we can do is take this edge here and bring it down to this spot by doing an R prime to hide this pair, a U and an R prime, or an R to bring it up, and then do a U to put them on the left side. And now we have 4 moves to finish the center, and then 1 move to orient it. All right, and then I immediately saw that these were paired up, and then we can also see that this triangle is here, so we would flip this triangle, do a U move to pair them up, and then adjust the deface so that the empty slot is in a position where we can insert it, and we would insert like this. And then adjust the deface. Now the first thing I see is this paired up, this pair here, which isn't great, but it's better than anything else we have. If we were to try and do OPF, it would turn out to be more difficult than it needs to be. So what I would end up doing is putting this one on the left, and what I'm going to go and do is flip this corner so that it can pair up with this triangle. So flip it, and then we do a U move, we pair those up, and then we know if we flip this one and this one, this will end up on the top, and this one will be flipped down, so we can pair it up with its triangle pretty easily. Okay, and then we have a back sledge to solve the triangles, and then we have CP. Okay, now onto the third scramble. Okay, now let's get into this. So the first things I see are this pair and this pair. We can't really do anything great with this pair. So what I'll do is make the large trap with the blue and pink. The way I'd do that is I would move this pair down here, bring this edge into place this way, and we would solve it with an R move. What I would likely do is kind of glance at this side to see what will happen, and just kind of using my look ahead, I would see that this triangle is going to end up here, and this triangle is going to end up here. So that's going to leave us with an interesting case, but you don't have to know exactly how to solve it from this point. You just need to know what's going to happen. So what we'll do is do an R to pair up the large trap, do an F move to get it out of the way, and then like I predicted, this triangle is here and this one is here. The way we can solve this case is simply by bringing this triangle down, doing a U move, and then bringing it back up to form the small trap. And then we do an R prime to put it in place. Now, the first thing I see is this and this, and so I would do that to pair them up. And then as I'm inserting my triangle or my triple into place, I see that this is paired up, and all we need to look for is a blue. And I would rotate and don't see anything, and then rotate again. So the way we can solve this, we see this one, which is in a better place than this because it's in a different orientation. So the way we can solve this is by doing a U move to bring this triangle in the back, and then we do an R prime to pair it up. And I would probably, since this is an open slot already, I'd probably do like a fancy finger trick to insert it. Instead of rotating, I would probably do like that to insert it in place. But yeah, so then we see, the first thing I'd see is the blue center because nothing else really stands out. And the way I would solve the large trap, because we have all of the pieces on this side already, the way I'd solve it is by putting this pair in the back and then hiding it, so that when we do a U move and undo that, the large trap is made in the correct scheme. And then I'd put it on the left so that the large triangle doesn't get disturbed, or large trap doesn't get disturbed. Then I'd do an R, wide R to, kind of move it. And then I would see that this triangle is here, this edge is here, and this triangle is here. And the way I can solve these pieces is by doing a U, R prime, U. And since I knew that this triangle ended up back here, I can just do an R prime and I don't have to rotate. And then I can do a U, R. And that's going to solve our center, and then we can just quickly orient it. And now, what I'd probably do in this specific situation is, I would say we could maybe solve the red on top, but there's nothing great to be able to do that. So we're going to go with the green center. And we can see that this is paired up and this edge is in the right position, so we can just do that to make the large trap. And then this case is pretty interesting. The way we would go about solving it is by putting one of these triangles in the R layer and bringing this edge up, U move so when we bring it back down, this triangle is going to pair it up and this one's going to end up in the bottom. That way we can just do a 3 move insert to solve it, and then we orient our centers. And then rotating, the first things I saw were that the pink was going to be on the bottom for this corner, and unfortunately we do not have any pink triangles on the bottom, which means we're going to have to do a flip before we can pair up any of our pieces. So we're just going to flip these two to be on the bottom, and then we do a U. Actually, it would probably be better to do a U prime so that we pair this up, and then we can just flip this way, and then we do a U, and we have our formed triple. And then we adjust the D layer and insert. Okay, so in this solve, we're going to do, for this specific case, we're going to do OPF. I know Aiden has an alg for this kind of case, but I do not know it. So we're going to just do standard OPF. Now, what we can see is that if we did a U move, or a U prime, we would pair up this triple, but these two, the triangles, need to swap. And that's unfortunate because that means we have to do at least 4 flips to solve this case. So what I would do in this specific circumstance is flip this and this, and that would give us 1 flip for OPF. But to avoid it, we're going to put this yellow corner here so that when we flip these 2 triples, it's going to bring this blue corner up and this yellow triangle up, and we can situate it that way. And it's also going to bring this yellow triangle down so we can pair it up with the pink. So we did that, and we have our OPF pair here, and we can form our OPF pair for these two with 1 flip and a move. And so we have our OPF. You could probably avoid 2 flip here, but I don't know how to, so I didn't. Now, recognizing this 2 flip, I know I'm going to skip CP, and the way I know that is because these corners are all permuted relative to the edges. And since 2 flip flips, like it literally twists 2 corners, I know that I'm going to skip CP. And then we do a U prime, and that's it. All right, let's move on to the 4th solve. All right, so the first thing I see right off the bat is this pair. It would be nice if this pair could move up and form with this, but that's not the correct color scheme. Something else to note is that this triple here is already formed, and we may be able to do something kind of fancy to preserve it. We'll see how it goes. So the first thing I would do is probably rotate so that I can pair up this pair with this edge to do in pretty easy way. And we do that, and then all we have left is this small trap, and we can pair it up like this. Now, as far as preserving this triple, we probably won't be able to, but at least we know that this is already going to be paired up, and that it can be solved fairly easily. And I guess I would probably rotate and do a U move or a U prime to put it in place. And so unfortunately it left us with kind of a bad triples case, but we can manage. We see this here, we see, so all of these are already 1 move away from being solved, which is nice. So what I can do is I can store this pair in this slot while also moving this triangle into the correct position to pair up here. And I would do that by a U prime, and then an R to pair these up, and then a wide R, U prime to put it in its spot. And then I see these two, which can be solved with 3 moves. and that gives us our first two triples. We put it in place and insert it. So then moving on, the first thing I see is this blue pair. I glance at the red, but I don't see anything nice, so I would go with blue, and fortunately we have a pretty decent case on blue. The way I would solve this, since I know blue goes on the right of gray in the scheme, I would put it so that this pair can be attached to the edge with one move, and then do this. And this is the same case as before, where we hide the triangle, bring it into the spot, pair it up the edge, and then do the 3-move insert, and then orient the center. And then here, so we have a small trap. We also have a large trap, but the color scheme is flipped, but that's okay. The way we can do this, since we have this large trap formed, is by taking this large trap, hiding it, doing a U move, and then bringing it back up so that we basically took the edge from being on this side of the gray to being on this side of the gray. Now, unfortunately, we got this edge triangle situation here, but that's okay. The way I would deal with this is I would put the triangle on the left so that when I do a U or an R move, it won't get affected. And then we do a U so that when we undo that R, it gets brought into the R layer. And then I would hide this pair, do another U move to bring this pair into, or this triangle into the bottom, and then it's just a 3-move insert from there. That's one of the more inefficient cases for last two centers, but it's fairly simple to solve. So the first thing I see for last bottom triple is that this is paired up and we don't have any yellow corners or yellow triangles on the bottom. So we're gonna flip these two yellows like that, do a U move to pair them up, and then luckily we don't have to adjust the D face and we can just insert it. Now moving on, okay, so we're gonna do OPF on this solve, and the way I can tell we're going to do OPF is because this is paired up and this is paired up, but these two don't have any, they don't have to swap or anything like that. So for this specific case, I see that these two are already formed and that all that needs to be done is to bring this triangle into the bottom. And the way we can do that is by flipping these two triples, and that's going to bring this triangle into the bottom so it can be paired up with this corner. Like that. And then bring this over. We have a 2-flip again. We also know that we're going to skip CP for the same reasons as before. The corners are permuted, but not oriented correctly. And there we go. All right, and on to the last solve. Okay, and getting right into this, the first thing I see is this pair, and this here, this edge. So we can pair up these two to make the large trap in 2 moves, and then that leaves us with these two triangles and this edge, which isn't great, but it can be dealt with. So the way I would do this is by doing F and then an R, and then quickly rotating. And the way I would deal with this is I would just bring one triangle down immediately, do an F move, and then bring this triangle in that way. And then we do that, and we got lucky and we got our first triple solved. And then I see that this corner and this triangle can be paired up in 2 moves, and then that this triangle can be paired up in 3 in the same way as before. And then we insert it, and now looking ahead, I saw that this was solved, this trap was solved correctly on red, So we're going to go with red, and the way I would do that is by adjusting so I can bring this triangle into attached to this edge to form the small trap, and then we do an R move to bring it in, and then we orient, and then since we know blue is next, we would go with blue. So I know that so we could do that. We could think about this two different ways. We could think about this as hiding this pair and bringing this edge over this way, or we could think about bringing this pair down and moving it around. But either way we think about it, all we're going to have left is a single triangle left to solve, and that's going to be up here. And the way we would do that is very similar to before. We leave this triangle in the the left side, so that when we can bring it up and then put it into the R layer, and then we would hide this pair, do a U move or U prime to bring it up, and then it's a 3-move insert. Now I did see that this triple is already formed. That was very lucky, and we could probably do something. We could probably insert it some way without rotating, but I'm just going to rotate and insert it, and then we adjust the D face to solve it. All right, so next we have last 3 triples. We probably are gonna do OPF for this, since doing standard pair formation would be a little tricky. The way we're gonna do that is seeing that this is already paired up, and that this triangle is facing down, or this corner is facing down, and it needs to be paired up with the yellow. So we can flip these two to bring the triangle to the bottom, and then we can do a, if we did a U move to pair it up, we would end up with 1 flip. So instead we're going to flip the other 2 to avoid it, pair up the pink and blue, and then flip to pair up the blue and yellow. And from here, we see that this triangle needs to go here, so we know we're going to do a back sledge. That's going to leave us with a CP. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was helpful to you guys who are getting into FTO. And if you have any questions, if anything was confusing, or if you want me to make more of these, please let me know in the comments. Feel free to share this with anybody who you think could find it useful. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. See you next time.